When was the last time you actually took stock of everything that you have accomplished? Not move past it or minimize it, not immediately rush to think about what's next, but just look at it. Let it land. I think that gap, the gap between what you've actually done and what you believe about yourself, is the thing that is quietly running your life and business. Hey there, and welcome back to She Coaches Coaches. I'm Candy Motzek, and I am glad you're here. I want to start with a question today. When was the last time you actually took stock of everything that you have accomplished? Not move past it or minimize it, not immediately rush to think about what's next, but just look at it. Let it land. Now, if you're like most of the people that I work with, the answer is probably not recently or maybe never. And here's what I want to know. You're accomplished. You have achieved some big things. There's actual evidence of what you're capable of, and somehow none of it is quite enough to let yourself appreciate how far you have come. You're working hard, you care deeply, and you still go to bed at night with this quiet sense that somehow you're behind. That's what we're talking about today. Because I think that gap, the gap between what you've actually done and what you believe about yourself, is the thing that is quietly running your life and business. And it doesn't have to. I want to share with you about one of my clients. She started a coaching business about 6 months ago. And in the first couple of months, she signed 5 clients. She chose her niche, built a program. She's got satisfied clients who give her testimonials. She's got proof that this works. And she's convinced she's not successful. When I laid it all out for her, she heard it. And then almost immediately, she started to move on. I saw the pause. And then she said, yeah, but, and then she moved on to the next challenge in front of her. She'd made some great progress, but she didn't let that in. She didn't let it land. Here's what that looks like in a session. I say something true about what someone has accomplished. I list the facts. You've chosen your niche. You've designed a program. You've done a number of Wheel of Life sessions. You signed these clients. And then they take a breath and then they change the subject. They go straight back to the problem or the next problem on their list, just like my client did. They only focus on the thing that isn't working. It's like the accomplishments and that information just doesn't land. It's kind of like they have amnesia. Not because they forget exactly, but because they can't genuinely hold the evidence, it slips and the problem fills the space right back up. So my client did it in the session this week. She's not unusual. She's actually one of the most capable people I've worked with, but she has a habit that doesn't help her. And I see this constantly of moving the goalpost the moment she gets close to it. Does that sound familiar? She accomplishes something real, and then instead of acknowledging it and counting it, she redefines success. So it sits just out of reach again. The bar is always moving, so she is always, always behind. Listen, there is absolutely no way that you can win a race when you keep moving the finish line, right? I want to be clear. This isn't a character flaw. I do this too. The people who do this are not fragile or negative or ungrateful. Often they're some of the most driven people in the room. And one of the reasons they got where they are is because of that habit of raising the bar. The drive is real. It got them somewhere. But at some point, that habit of always moving the finish line or raising the bar, that place of never being satisfied, it stops being helpful. It becomes the thing that quietly steals the joy. It steals the feeling of, wow, I'm making progress. It steals away from, I'm really proud of myself. Because here is what she was not letting herself see. 8 out of 10 people who want to become coaches never take the first step, not one step. They think about it, they dream about it, they imagine it. Maybe they buy a course, and that's where it ends. But she took the step. And the next one, and the next one. And 5 paid clients later, she was explaining to me why she hadn't really done much yet. I do this too. Someone sends me a message about how a conversation changed something for them, and my first response is, "Well, that's nice." And then I put it down. That voice comes up and says, "Well, that wasn't that big of a deal." I've got 44 testimonials published right now on my website, and a lot of unpublished ones too. 44 people who have written something complimentary about what the work that we did together meant to them and how it helped them. And you know what? I have never once sat down and read through them all. It's embarrassing to say it out loud, but it's true. There's something about it that I just can't quite bring myself to do. Like it would be too much somehow. Like I'm not sure what I'd do with what I found there. And that tells me something because what I just described, the reluctance to look at the evidence, I see it in so many people. Take my example and see if it applies to you. Here's what I think is going on. It's not that the evidence is missing. The evidence is there. The results are real. The clients are satisfied. You're doing the work. The gap is not between you and success. The gap is between the evidence and your willingness to take it in. Let me say that again. The gap is not between you and success. The gap is between the actual evidence and your willingness to allow it. And I think a lot of people who are accomplished, who've spent years achieving in spaces where they had to work twice as hard, where they were sometimes the only one in the room that looked like them, those people learned something early. They learned not to rest on their laurels, not to rest on what they'd done, because the moment you stopped proving yourself, someone might notice. So you kept moving. You kept raising the bar. You kept going for it. You kept putting your hand up for those stretch assignments. And you made it impossible to ever feel like you've arrived because that staying hungry feels safer than claiming what you've built. That might have made sense at one time, but I'm curious. Ask yourself, is this running your life right now? And if that's true, it is costing you the ability to see yourself clearly and to enjoy your life and your business. So, when another client does what my client did this week, when they hear the evidence and then they try to rush past it, now we stop. We pause. I say, whoa, whoa, slow down a minute here. Put on the brakes. How about if you allow yourself to really see what you've accomplished? Let's just stay here for a bit. And they always resist a little. They want to get to that next challenge because it's a habit. They might, yeah, but me. Yeah, but you know how that goes. And then I ask them to just pause. And here's what happens when somebody actually does that. It's slow and it's a bit uncomfortable at first, right? Not unlike the way I feel about sitting down and reading all those testimonials. There's resistance and an urge to get moving, and then something shifts and they get quiet in a different way. And then they light up, not in a loud way, but in a settled way, like something that they already knew just became real. It's not like the lights turned on like a spotlight on them, but they are lit from within. And that is what I'm after. Not the performance about feeling good about yourself, the actual moment that it lands, that being lit from within. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Before the end of today, not next week, I want you to do this today. Write a list of 10 things that you have actually accomplished, not your goals or your plans or any of that forward thinking stuff. What have you done? What is already real? And read them out loud and then stay with it for 60 seconds before you move on. That's it. That's the whole ask for you. Not because it fixes everything, but because you can't build from what you can't see. This is truly the heart of the work that I do with every single client, not just the strategy or the step by step, not just the action and the accountability, but helping them see what they can't see from where they're standing. Because most of the people I work with don't have a doing problem. They've got a seeing problem. They are much further along than they think. Now, if something landed for you today, if any of this sounds like you, I would love to have a conversation. I'll put the link in the episode description, and I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you so much for being here with me today, and I'll see you on the next episode.